Hey guys, welcome back. I just wanted to give you guys a quick introduction to Blender. Blender is becoming quite popular ever since version 2.8 came out, and I just wanted to show you how to get started, a brief overview of the interface, and how to download it. So in order to download the software, you need to go to blender.org and go to download, and you can download the latest normal version. Now, depending on what kind of computer you have, you may need to download the experimental version, which is down here in the red. I'm currently using the latest release candidate for Apple Silicon 3.2, and that enables me to use some more of the graphics features. So if you were to download this normally, it can actually identify the version of your system and get the correct download set up for you. Oop, cancel that. So if you're unfamiliar with the installation process on your system, I suggest you look that up. There's an installation process for Windows, there's several for Mac, and the installation process for Linux is fairly easy. Blender is open source and developed on Linux, so it works actually very efficiently on certain versions of Linux. I'm using the Mac version because I find that the graphics are excellent. Alright, so let's open Blender. I just hit Command Space to open Spotlight, and here we go. We're on 3.20 beta. And I'm just going to start with a new general file template. And as you can see, you start off with the default cube. This is in every scene, and you normally start off by erasing this default cube, so you can either hit delete or X, and it asks for a confirmation. So in order to roll around the scene, you click in your center wheel on your mouse. It's essential that you use a 3-button mouse with Blender in order to navigate efficiently. And I'm also using that in combination with Shift. So you hold down the center wheel and Shift, and you can pan. Center wheel only, center wheel and Shift. Center wheel only, center wheel and Shift. Okay, so we're going to add something to the scene, and as you can see, this is our main work area. There are other panels around, but don't let those distract you for now. So I'm going to hit Shift A, which allows me to add objects to the scene, and as you can see, basically every object available is available through this menu. So Shift A, Shift A. Alright, so let's add a mesh in. So I'm going to add in a UV sphere. And as you can see, we've got our UV sphere. We can move this UV sphere around by hitting Grab, G. And G just allows you to lock the item to the cursor and move around. So if I have the cursor over here and hit G, it stays at the same distance from the cursor. Now I can lock the movement to a certain axis by hitting the axis letter. So Z will lock in the Z axis, Y, and X. And that applies to other forms of movement as well. So I can hit R for rotate. And the way that the rotation works is it rotates about the, what do you call it? Origin point. So the origin point is set to the center of the sphere, and it will rotate around that axis. Now if I were to hit Y, it will constrain the rotation to that axis as well. So I've hit X, Y, Z. Okay? And I can also scale the object by hitting just S. And the scaling works from the origin point as well. So we've got the origin point at the center of the sphere. If we were to move that origin point, it would scale slightly differently, but that doesn't matter for now. So we've learned how to grab things by hitting G, lock things to the axes, and rotate by hitting R and locking the rotation to the axes. Now we can add multiple objects to the scene by hitting Shift A once again and selecting Icosphere. Now everything that is added to the scene is added to where the 3D cursor is located. The 3D cursor is this red and white circle in the middle here, and that will become very important later, trust me. So I'm just going to move this on Y over to the side by hitting G and Y. And if I were to add another thing into the scene, like a cylinder, boom, it's on that 3D cursor. So I'm going to show you how to move this 3D cursor, and that's with Shift and right click. So now we have the 3D cursor over here, and when I go to add something into the scene, like a monkey, it lands on that 3D cursor. So that becomes very important because you can actually utilize geometry and move a 3D cursor onto a particular part of the geometry and then add an additional element to that 3D cursor. So, just going to delete the monkey, delete the cylinder, delete this icosphere, and I'm just going to show you edit mode. So right now we are in a particular mode called object mode, and this enables you to add things to the scene and manage the elements in the scene. But what happens if you want to edit a individual element? You need to go into edit mode. To access this, it's in this menu right here, but I prefer just hitting tab. Blender is very shortcut focused, so I suggest learn the shortcuts as quickly as possible, and that will speed up your modeling. It will speed up your workflow for sure. So I'll hit tab. Now I'm in edit mode, and you can see that the individual points and surfaces are available for access. And by clicking on these, what is it, vertices? Yeah, so I can select vertexes on the object, and by hitting G now, I can grab and move around that vertex, or I can grab multiple vertices and move those around. So this is essentially how 3D modeling is done. You add objects into the scene, maybe combine them. So I'm just going to add another UV sphere, move this over. You can see that they're touching, they're not combined yet. But let's say I want to Boolean merge. So union. Okay, so now they're joined. So now if I go into edit mode, I can go into a single vertex. Oops. Oh, there's still one of the spheres is still there. Oops. Okay, so if I go into edit mode, I can now edit the union between those objects. So, I mean, I'm jumping a little far ahead, but I just wanted to show you the general workflow of combining objects in a scene, bringing them into edit mode, and manipulating their vertices, faces, and edges. So now I can change between selection modes with 1, 2, and 3. And you can see this set of icons changing up here. 1, vertex, 2, edge, 3, face. So while I'm in face select, I can obviously grab faces. While I'm in number 2, edge select, I can grab edges, and 1, vertice, I can move with just single vertex. So those basic fundamentals are extremely important for understanding how Blender works. So now I'm just going to bring you around a little tour of the interface. We've got the scene tree, and this shows you all items in the scene. So if I just move my 3D cursor and add a new item like a cylinder, you'll see it pop up in the scene tree. Down here, we've got a bunch of options. This is basically where most Blender artists spend a lot of time. So you can set up your scene settings, render settings, layers, so on and so forth. So this goes very deep, so I won't go through it too much, but we will be using it just in a second to add a material. So next up is render and view settings. So up in this right hand corner, you can change the view settings. So here we have wireframe, just normal shaded. We have look dev mode. Maybe I'll explain that later. And then rendered mode. And by default, this is set up in Eevee. You can switch it to cycles. So Eevee is real-time rendering If I go into the scene mode, I can see that here. Real-time rendering is something that's used in like a video game, and it cuts down on graphical usage. It is more efficient, and it allows you to preview things a lot faster. So it's kind of guessing how light may interact with the objects. But if I switch to cycles, cycles is a very precise very precise calculation of where light travels and bounces. So as you can see in Eevee mode, the shadows are a lot simpler, and there's some weird artifacting that happens sometimes when it's estimating. If I go to cycles, cycles shows bounced secondary light, and the shadows are much more defined and smooth. So just know that. I do a lot of photorealistic rendering or hyper-realistic rendering, and for that I use cycles. But Eevee is quite popular because you can work in Eevee and kind of estimate how the scene may look later. Alright, so let's just do a few more things. Let's add a material to one of the objects. So actually we only have one object in the scene, so I'm just going to go into the materials tab here. You can see when I hover over it says material properties. There's nothing going on right now, but what I can do is just create a new material. Boom. And by default, it creates a principled BSDF shader. This is perfectly fine. It covers so many different things. And we're just going to mess around with a shader. So right now we've got our ball material added. And I'm just going to adjust the base color here. And this is just our, I guess, paint. And then you have additional properties like reflectivity, metallicness, specularity, roughness, So if I were to turn up metallic to 100% and specularity up, which is kind of how reflective it is, and roughness down, then we've got some shiny items. Now, what a lot of 3D art does is use simplistic geometry and then smooth that. So if I turn on smooth shading, it does a fairly okay job. I mean, my mesh is crappy, so that's why it's not shading properly here. But essentially, this is smoothing out the faces to a certain degree. You can still see the facet lines here. So I'm just going to go back to shade flat. So as you can see, I've got my metallicness up 100%, specularity up high, and roughness down low. And that makes things very shiny and plastic looking. I'll add another light in here. So I'll go to Shift A like we discussed before, add an area light in, bring that up, hit S for scale, R to rotate it on the Y axis. So I hit Y to lock it in, scale it a little bit more, and in our panel of everything, we've got light settings when our light is selected. So if I select spheres, you don't see that. If I select a light, you do. And I can crank the power of that light up and change the color. So now we've got multiple light sources being traced properly, well, somewhat properly, through Eevee. But if we were to switch to cycles, the shading improves significantly, although there's somewhat of a wait time depending on how fast your computer is. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate that light. Now we have two of the same light in the scene, and I'm just going to change its color to something complementary and scale that up quite a bit. Now let's go to Shade Smooth. And as you can see, we've already created a fairly complex scene. There's a hell of a lot more to Blender, but I mean, this is just getting your toes dipped in the water here. We've created an object in the scene, we've manipulated that object, we've actually combined two objects, we've added some lighting, and we've set up rendering to a certain degree. So if we sit here and let this render, it will further and further refine the rendering until it looks more photorealistic, and that's where Cycles shines, but it takes time. If you want to work fast, work in Eevee or look dev mode. Okay, so that's a very, very basic introduction to Blender, and I'm going to be making more videos like this in the future, so stay tuned for that. I'm also going to be talking about Unix systems, Linux, so on. So subscribe if you want. Catch you later.